A warm welcome to Aviation this week on Channels Television. I'm Bukola Joe Oketumbi. Bilateral air services agreement ought to correct balance of trade and generate sufficient national income for the countries involved. In Nigeria, the earnings from the over 80 air services agreement it signed with many countries is as good as on the paper on which the mutual accord is written. With inadequate reciprocity, experts think it may be time for Nigerian carriers to change their strategy for conquest on the international routes. Plus, Air Peace receives a third 777 aircraft as it prepares to take its designated BASA routes. That's a sneak preview.
Air transportation is an important component of the economy for business travel, tourism, domestic and international trade. Most of the countries of the world are able to fly into each other's territories based on an agreement commonly referred to as Bilateral Air Service Agreement, BASA. This agreement, which two nations usually sign, is to allow international commercial air transportation between their territories.
I think without that collaboration that was started at the Chicago Convention in 1944, there will not be global aviation. Because if you look at it, aviation more or less started with the Wright brothers in 1903, and lots of countries had at that time started some sort of research into flight.
With a forecast from the International Air Transport Association projecting that African carriers, including those in Nigeria, are expected to report a $300 million net loss in 2019, despite an expected global airline industry net profit of $35.5 billion. Many of those domestic operators that were designated to international routes have not been able to operate these routes. Arik Air was designated to London, Johannesburg and New York, but has stopped operations to those destinations since February 2017. Medview Airline in 2018 stopped flying to London and Dubai. Industry experts insist multiple designations to foreign carriers hurts the domestic carriers.
Your children are suffering from kwashiorkor. You are giving food to somebody else that is being subsidized by another government.
Under the BASA agreement, we should be able to go from Abuja to London. But subsequent governments have not been able to, have not been courageous enough to fight the cause of Nigerian Airlines. So that Abuja matter has been left exclusively for other carriers to exploit. But it's our right, it's a Nigerian right. It mustn't be Arik, it could be any airline, Nigerian airline.
In September 2018, the federal government said it will review the bilateral air service agreement as it has with countries whose airlines operate to Nigeria, noting that BASA and all forms of partnership with international carriers are not static, although domestic carriers complain of multiplicity of entries. The NCAA adds that this is no big deal.
As it is today, if you look at the BASAs we have, a lot of Nigerian carriers have not been taking advantage of those BASAs. So what we are trying to do is to encourage Nigerian carriers to take advantage of what is available now. And BASAs are not what you can call permanent documents. They change. They're very dynamic. And every now and then we review them, and Nigerian carriers are invited to take part in utilizing those BASA frequencies that we have. In some countries we have multiple designation. Some countries we have only single designation. In some cases we even have multiple entry points.
BASA arrangements contain provision on traffic rights, which is routes airlines can fly and cities that can be served. Capacity. This is the number of flights that can be operated or passengers that can be carried between bilateral partners. Designation and ownership. This is the number of airlines a bilateral partner can nominate to operate services and the ownership criteria airlines must meet to be designated under the BASA. Tariff. some agreements that require airlines to submit ticket prices to aeronautical authorities for approval, and many other clauses addressing competition policy, safety and security.
In the second part of our interview with the former Vice President, Business Development and International Affairs at Arik Air, Mr. Larry Gbangboshe, he shares his thoughts on how best our carriers can succeed on the foreign routes.
I think we probably either overreach ourselves or have not perfected our strategy very well. I oftentimes maintain the position, which is, for me is personal. It's easy to fly to London, but at what cost? All these other airlines that we see flying around the world, especially from Europe and everywhere, they have the status of what I would call, in some cases, some are defined as national carriers, some are not. But they have the full complement of having grown a network over time, which helps them to, fill their flights better than anybody else. Most of the operators out of Nigeria, our Lagos-London flights, our Lagos-New York flights, our Lagos-Dubai flights, for all the other operators around, we operate more as point-to-point operators. We need to have evolved to a stage where we have built enough robust network where we can do such longer flights. I mean, if you fly Lagos-Abuja on the 737 on the CRJ 900, the economics will probably work well for you. If you fly an A330 to London with how many passengers, how would you make money? Over flight charges and the rest of it. And the costs of operating to British airports. For instance, in London, you have to deal with slots. Slots comes with a lot of money. Operators in Nigeria do not have that benefit of giving slots to UK carriers or American carriers in Nigeria. So it's a mix of policy handicap for us and a mix of business strategy failure for us. I would rather want to be part of a global alliance. Why do I need to fly to London if I could be part of an alliance that will both post value for me as a business, value for Nigeria as a nation, and value to my partner operators? As you can see around the world today, there's One World, there is Star Alliance, there's so many of them. It brings economics of scale. I mean, people leave their homes in Oslo, come into London to fly into Lagos. People leave their home in Uyo, come to Lagos. People leave their homes in Kaduna, come to Lagos to fly to London. So if you believe in building synergies, then it can help us to grow. The people that we have opened our market to, of course, there's competition, there's free, and now we're talking about free market. But in the midst of free markets, we need to look at the dynamics of where they're coming from, what exists in their own markets and what exists in our own markets. Where they're coming from is different from our markets. If you ask an European carrier to operate into anywhere in your country, well, they've got the economy of scale. While some people work with 2 + 2 = 4, they can work with 3 + 1. But for us, do we even have 2 + 2 = 4? We don't, because of the dynamics of our markets. So the more we open up ourselves carelessly, the more we take our airlines into a big disadvantage. I would rather want to see a situation where a BA will interline with an Air Peace, a Lufthansa will interline with an Arik. Everybody that leaves Uyo, that leaves Kano, anywhere else in Nigeria, the operations will be fed into the UK carriers, European carriers will have them as feeder partners, the same way they will be for Arik, the same way they will be for Air Peace, for the carriers and Medview as well, any carrier that's got the capacity to operate long haul. So we need to also create a policy situation that will support these airlines. If government keeps looking, these airlines will be dying one by one. The government just needs to do something to support them with policy. And it's all about policy. I mean, not everybody will ask government to bring money. It's not about government take money. If you say take money, we'll spend the money. It will go down the drain because, again, we don't have the policy that will support what we're trying to achieve. So we keep throwing money at problems without getting to the root of the problem and solving it. So I think government needs to work around that with policy. The more we open ourselves up without consideration for the local capacity that we've got, which we need to grow, they have the chances that we're killing local capacity and businesses.